Welcome to Woodbridge Geometry Virtual Tutor. In this video, we'll be going over triangle properties and the objective: define and use the triangle sum theorem, exterior angle theorem, and the isosceles triangle theorem. So we're going to look at the triangle sum theorem first. So we know that every triangle has three angles. And the triangle sum theorem says that the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. So given our triangle with angles A, B, and C, if we add those three angles, so angle A plus angle B plus angle C, they will add up to 180 degrees. So we have two examples. In the first one, we have triangle ABC. Given angle A is 120 and angle B is 34, can we find the measure of angle C? Well, we know that all three angles should add up to 180. So we're going to add angles A and B. Angle C we don't know, so we're just going to put a variable in its place. We know all three angles should add up to 180, so I now have an equation. I can combine like terms. 120 plus 34 is 154. And then I subtract 154 from both sides. So that C is 26. So using this equation, I have now found the measure of angle C to be 26. So we can now say that the measure of angle C is 26 degrees. So now we go to the second example. So in this triangle, we have angles E, H, and T, where we're given angle E is 82 degrees, angle H is 43 degrees, angle T is the one we don't know, so we have to use our equation to try to find it. So we're going to set up all three angles equal to 180. So 43 plus 82 plus T, the one we don't know, equals 180. Combine like terms. 43 plus 82 is 125. T we still don't know, equal to 180. Subtract 125. So T equals 55. So by solving this equation, we've now found the measure of angle T to be 55 degrees. Next, we're going to talk about the exterior angle theorem. Exterior angle theorem. The measure of the exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the measures of the two opposite angles. So in this figure, we have the exterior angle, which is angle 3. Then we have angles 1 and 2. Well, angles 1 and 2 are opposite of angle 3. So I can write my equation as angle 1 plus angle 2 equals angle 3. So we have some examples to do. In the first example, they're asking you to find the measure of angle 2. So we locate angle 2. We notice it's an exterior angle. Well, that angle is going to be equal to the sum of the two opposite angles, and the two opposite angles are angle S and angle A. Angle S is 42 degrees, angle A is 30 degrees. Well, if you go back to our theorem, if you add the two opposite angles, it equals the exterior angle. So I'm going to add angle A and angle S, which is 30 and 42, and that's going to give me the measure of angle 2. So when I add 30 and 42, that gives me 72. So the measure of angle 2 is 72 degrees. In the second example, we are told to find the measure of the missing angle. So we look at the figure. They're looking for one of the opposite angles. So we have our exterior angle is 155. Well, I know the sum of the two opposite angles is equal to the exterior angle. So I know that angle H plus angle G will equal angle F. Well, angle H I don't know, but I know angle G is 35. And I know angle F is 155. So now I have an equation. So just subtract 35. And now I've solved for angle H, which is 120 degrees. Next, we have the isosceles triangle theorem. A triangle is isosceles if it has two sides that are the same measure. If these two sides are the same measure, what can we say about the angles across from them? Well, we can say that those two angles are congruent. So the isosceles triangle theorem says if two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the two angles opposite those sides are also congruent. And vice versa. If two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the two sides opposite those angles are also congruent. So we have our picture here. So we have these marks right here, which tell us these two sides are congruent. So if we go to the opposite angles, those two angles are also congruent. So we put our marks for congruence. So we have two examples. The first one, they're asking us to find the value for x. Well, in looking at the figure, I notice that I have two angles that are congruent, angle B and angle C. So that tells me, by isosceles triangle theorem, that the opposite two sides are also congruent. So now I can set up an equation. 3x minus 7 is equal to x plus 15. And now I solve the equation. So I found the value of x equals 11. That's what they asked me, so I'm done. Now, if they asked me to find the measure of the sides, I would take x equals 11, and I would plug it into either 3x minus 7 or x plus 15. Now those sides are congruent, so they should come out to be the same. So if we go ahead and substitute for both sides, we'll see that they're equal. So we have 3x minus 7 for one side. Well, we found x is 11, so we substitute it. We've got 33 minus 7, which is 26. Well, our other side is x plus 15. Well, we found x equals to 11, so we plug in 11, and 11 plus 15 is 26. 26 is equal to 26, so we know we've done it correctly. So our second example. So they've given us two congruent sides by our congruence marks. So we know these two opposite angles are going to be equal. So if this angle is x, then this angle is x. Well, we don't have any other additional information, but what we do know is that the angles of a triangle should add up to 180 degrees. So I can set up an equation, x plus 50 equals 180. Subtract 50. X plus x is 2x. So now I have 2x equals 130. Whoops, 130. Divide by 2 gives me x equals 65. Well, going back to the picture, x was the angle measure we were looking for. So the measure of angle x is 65 degrees. So now you're going to try some practice problems. Pause the video here. Try the first 3 questions. Start the video when you are ready to check your answers. All right, so you should be ready to check your answers at this time. So looking at the first one, we have the 3 angles of a triangle. They're asking us to find the value of x or the missing angle measure. So in the first one, we know that all 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180. So our equation is going to say 55 plus 54 plus x plus 74 equals 180. 55 plus 54 plus 74 is 183. We still have plus x equals 180. We subtract 183. So x equals 3. Negative 3. So now I'll go back up to the angle that I'm missing, x plus 74, and I plug in my value for x, which is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 74 equals 71. So my missing angle measure is 71 degrees. Looking at the second one, we have the 3 angles of a triangle, and we know that the 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180. Two plus 70 is 72, plus 60 is 132. 8x plus 132 equals 180. Subtract 132. 8x equals 48. Divide by 8. X equals 6. So now I go up to my missing angle, 8x plus 2, and I found x equals 6, so I substitute. 8 times 6 is 48. 48 plus 2 is 50 degrees. In the third problem, we have an exterior angle, 156. We've also been given these two angles, 20 and 35. So looking at the triangle that contains the angles 20 and 35, we know that the three angles of a triangle should add up to 180 degrees. So I can find this angle by adding 20 and 35 and my missing angle, setting them equal to 180. 20 plus 35 is 55. Subtract 55. $180 minus 55 is 125. So this angle right here is 125 degrees. Well, if I know this one is 125, I know this one is 125. But because this is an exterior angle, I know that it is equal to the sum of the two opposite angles, which are this one and this one. So now I have the question mark plus 125 equal to 156. Subtract 125. And 156 minus 125 is 31 degrees. So the missing angle that they asked me for is 31 degrees. Now pause the video and try the next two examples. Okay, you should be ready to check your work. So in question number 1, we see that we have an exterior angle, 88 degrees, and we know that the exterior angle is equal to the two opposite angles. So we can now write the question mark plus angle 40 equals 88 degrees. Subtract 40, and the missing angle is 48 degrees. In the next problem, we have an exterior angle, angle T, which is 12x plus 2. And we know that it is equal to the opposite two angles, which are angle V and angle U. So now we can write the equation 80 plus 3x plus 3 equals 12x plus 2. So over here, I'm going to combine like terms. I've got 3x plus 83 now equal to 12x plus 2. We don't like x's on both sides, so we get rid of the 3x. We now have 83 equals 9x plus 2. Subtract 2. 81 equals 9x. Divide by 9. 9 equals x. Well, if I go back to the directions they asked me to solve for x, I have x equals 9, so I'm done. Now pause the video and try the next two questions. Okay, so you should be ready to check. So in the first question, they ask us to find the value for x. Well, all we know is that we have two congruent angles. But if we remember back to the isosceles triangle theorem, if you have two congruent angles, then the two sides opposite of those angles are also congruent. So since this side is 8, this side, which is x, is also 8. So here, x equals 8. In the next question, they ask us to find the value of x. And they told us that the measure of angle 2 is 2x plus 14. Well, if we look at the triangle, it's an isosceles triangle. We have two congruent sides. We know the opposite angles are also congruent. So if this angle is 75, then this angle is 75. So in order to solve this question for x, I have to know what the actual measure of angle 2 is. Well, I know that all three angles add up to 180 degrees, so I'm going to do 75 plus 75 plus angle 2 equals 180. 75 plus 75 is 150. Subtract 150. And that gives me angle 2 is 30 degrees. Well, they asked me to solve for x, so if I go back to the question, they told me that the measure of angle 2 is 2x plus 14, but we just figured out that angle 2 is 30 degrees, so now we can set up the equation 2x plus 14 equals 30. So then we subtract 14, 2x equals 16, divide by 2, and x equals 8. So now I've solved for x and I'm done.